I am live, it says. Hooray. What's up? How you guys doing? This is a little different scene than the Unmasked Underground. I'm in my studio basement. You see the drums in the back. Some colorful hair. What's up, Jamie? How you doing? Welcome. We got 4 different feeds going tonight on the StreamYard, guys. We got the regular Facebook page, the music Facebook page, the like page, the YouTube channel, and the Twitch channel, all fired up. So what's up, everybody? I'm used to having music to back me up, so this is a little bit different style and format, but that's exactly what I was trying to do with this. So we'll let a few people come on in. What's up, Kylene? How's everybody doing? Welcome in. I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. Who is Izzy Dunfore? What is Izzy Dunfore? Why is Izzy Dunfore? When? How? All the fun questions. Well, we're going to start in just a little bit. Welcome, guys. I'm glad you are interested enough to poke your head in here. I'm Izzy Dunfore. I've been a hip-hop artist for 20 years plus. As far as, writing my own independent music, songs, lyrics, whatever you want to say, hooks, verses, jingles, all those things. What's up, everybody? OG Screw, Adam's here. What's going on? How's everybody doing? This live stream is hopefully an opportunity for us to bond a little bit, I guess. I feel like, being an artist, I have an ego that I need to check sometimes, and I feel the situation that the world has been put into with the virus and the epidemic and the pandemic and, all the other just things that are happening in the world right now. I feel like, I may assume a lot of people know me or know why I write the music that I write or know the stories behind them, and I'm learning as time goes on that that's not necessarily true. I see all you guys saying, hey, what's up, guys? How are you? I'm going to try to do this a little bit different than the morning and probably won't address everybody that comes in because we're on so many different feeds, but I'm so thankful to have you guys here. I'm really grateful for this and for the opportunity to just tell a little bit about myself. So I got a blunt rolled up. We're going to smoke together at least. One of these times, hopefully we can do a little Zoom get together and I can actually hear you talk back to me at some point because I feel like I do a lot of talking. But that's the point of this. I am an artist who has toured and been doing shows that a lot of times I have to do the planning for myself. So as an artist in today's industry, I have to be tour manager, marketing person, merch guy, obviously the performer who does the shows. I drive myself, and in the past have had an RV full of other artists that I was responsible for getting everybody to the shows and whatnot. So I think there's a lot of things about me that, like I said, my ego wants to believe that everybody knows about me, and that's probably just not the case. And so this hopefully will give us a chance to get to know Izzy Dunfore a little bit better. It's weird talking in the third person so directly, but that's exactly what it is. So I'm excited to tell this story, and I'm going to be honest, I'm winging it. I don't have any notes. It's my life, so I think I've got it down. We'll see. I'll probably forget some things that I felt like I wanted to hit on. And I'm nervous. I won't lie. This is more of an intimate scenario than I'm used to. But I'm also excited because this gives me a chance to be the real me and maybe that'll help me to grow and achieve some of the goals that maybe I felt I haven't been able to or have been unachievable to me in the past. So goals are a big deal to me, guys. I'm a hip hop artist, and a lot of times rappers are taken for big party animals, and that is part of my story. I'm going to start at the beginning here eventually, I promise. I'm trying to give a few minutes for people to come in. It's been 5 now, so I could go ahead and get kicking it off here. I don't want this to be a 2-hour long session about how great I am, because that has nothing to do with what I want this to be. Yes, I'm a fun artist. I love to entertain people, and hopefully the impact that I leave on whoever chooses to check out my art is positive. It isn't always, and I won't pretend that it is. There's people who don't like me. There's people who I don't like. I'm a human being. I have feelings too, and a lot of times I get walked on and taken for granted. Whatever. That's part of being an artist and being a public person. So hopefully you can hear me okay. If not, let me know. I'm speaking into a mic, and I'll try not to get too excited and blow your eardrums out. This is my blunt. I'm going to light it. I'm going to try to use it as a timekeeper so I don't just ramble on. If you guys want to smoke, feel free to. It's smoke and storytelling time. So to get to know Izzy Dunfore, you have to know a little bit about Lucas Hewitt. That's me. I'm Lucas Hewitt. Hi, guys. A lot of you here actually do know who I am, and I grew up with or around or are my family. So thank you, anybody who has supported me for that length of time. Thank you so much. I never ever anticipated being almost 40 years old, sitting here talking about being a rap artist. But to start at the beginning, Lucas Hewitt was born September 11th, 1980. And I was born in Marshalltown, Iowa. Iowa is a very traditional state, and that's where I was educated, brought up, learned my values. So I like to think I'm a fairly well-rounded, down-to-earth individual. But at the same time, that same grounding also drove me to, be more of an extreme person as a younger human being, maybe than I am today. But definitely pushed me to try to achieve things that a lot of people said that I never could or never would. But Lucas Hewitt grew up pretty mouthy, really smart. I learned very quickly, and I think those are attributes, but at the same time, it got me in a lot of compromising situations, I would say. I always tried to be older than I was, or try to just. I'm sure maybe every kid does that. I don't know. I was an only child, so that's another big part of my story. I grew up, at least for the first 10 years of my life, by myself, and having to, figure out what I could do to entertain myself as an only child. This is going to go out a lot. I know it. So yeah, Baxter, Iowa is a small town, guys, and the reason I tell you that is it's small in a lot of ways, population-wise, size-wise. It's about a square half mile, and mind-wise too. Like I said, very traditional. So as far as being open-minded, I wouldn't say Baxter, Iowa is going to be on a top-ranking list for open-mindedness by any means. So a lot of beliefs and old-fashioned, older generation. I don't want to straight up say racism, but people just don't encounter anything other than white Caucasian human beings, to tell you the truth. So as I grew up, that wasn't a big deal. My dad, he was born in 1948, so he listened to a lot of oldies music. that's what I grew up listening to. My mom was born in, sorry to age you, Mom, 1959. So she listened to a different age of music up to contemporary. And then, of course, I think everybody has cousins who expose them to whatever is happening at that point, pop music. And for me, as a young kid, 1984, pop music became Thriller and Michael Jackson. And I remember my cousin, and I'm not going to get into a bunch of names and super specific, but my cousin gave me the Thriller album. And so that was one of the first actual cassette tapes that I ever owned. Before that, I always listened to vinyl. Keeping her going. But my exposure to music for myself and my singing was through Sunday school as a young kid growing up. My mom's family was active in the church in Baxter, and so I had to go to Sunday school. I didn't have a choice. I mean, it's just I thought every kid did, and so I grew up singing, the little kid hymns, Jesus Loves Me songs, all that kind of stuff, and I love to sing. I always have. I can remember being a very young kid and listening to whatever Bee Gees maybe, or my Sesame Street records or Disney records or whatever song it was, and harmonizing with what was happening and what I was hearing. And it almost felt like some kind of a buzz, like it felt good. And so, singing was something that I just felt like was a part of life, being alive. As a real little kid, I mean, that was one of the first feelings that I had about something, was music. So anyway, as I grew, and I'm not going to, remain a little kid in this story for long. 10 years old, parents split up. They weren't very mindful that I was an only child, so they fought over me a lot. And I don't blame them, I guess. I don't think they had me in mind during those thoughts as much as from my perspective. They had me in mind from their perspective, which they were both younger adults at that time. So, we've been through all that together as a family, and I forgive them. They've hopefully, forgiven me for whatever part I played in all that kind of stuff. But either way, both parents remarried, stayed in the small town. All these things connect because all of a sudden I have 4 families living in the same county in a small town of only 1,000 people, where I can't go anywhere or do anything without having 6 to 10 sets of eyes on everything that I do, reporting back to my parents. So growing up as a kid and, being able to sneak around just wasn't possible. I stuck out like a sore thumb is the best way to put it. So having that perspective and that frame of mind, my own image, whatever, personality was very extreme. And so I guess more through the ages of 10 and, before I had a driver's license, I was stuck in Baxter and always around the same people who often didn't approve of who I was or how I was or whatever. So I didn't have a real high regard for myself. I told myself a lot of bad things, to tell you the truth. And I can't keep this hot. It makes me sad. I'm trying to get high. But I learned over the years, that those things that I was saying to myself as a young person, not even quite a young adult yet, was harmful, to my mentality. And guys, I'm not going to try to glorify all this stuff. It's a lot of my life was tough. It was hard on me. It was emotional, and I went through a lot of consequences because of just everybody else's life decisions that I was caught in between. And it taught me a lot, and it made me not be able to be a kid so much. It put me in a lot of adult situations. I had to make adult decisions, and I wasn't an adult. So for my mentality, it really kind of, I feel like it fried me a little bit, like it put me into just a psyche where I felt like, I was in a little kid's body, but I could make big kid decisions and have big kid thoughts, was kind of what was going on. Either way, beyond that, music-wise, I'm going to try to tie all this in with music. About sixth grade, I was the youngest kid in my class too, by the way. So sixth grade, I think I'm 11 years old, and starting out I would have been 11, 91. I was listening to the Everly Brothers. I don't know, maybe some of you don't know who they are, but they had a song called Dream. Dream, 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 dream when I need you. Anyway, I had the headphones on. I was listening to that song. I had a crush on a girl in sixth grade, whatever. And I had somebody else hear what I was listening to. They're like, let me hear it. And when I did, they were like, that's old. Like, what do you listen to that for? Like, that's what I listen to. I don't know. Like, what am I supposed to listen to? And that around that time, Sir Mix-a-Lot, Baby Got Back was coming out. And I went to a few friends who had some hip-hop albums. And the first 5 of them that I got were like 90s, early 90s. Ice-T, Original Gangster was one of them. CPO, that was the Capital Punishment Organization, which was MC Ren's original independent group before he was in NWA. Scarface, The Diary, which still today is one of my favorite albums. I don't really remember what the other ones were, but those I definitely remember for sure. Either way, I played those albums so much that I mean I knew every word to every one of them, because it was like I felt like I needed to update my own self. I felt like I got kicked in the teeth for listening to oldies. I love the oldies, and I still listen to the oldies, and I will always listen to the oldies. They've turned oldies into 80s music now, but to me, oldies is 50s and 60s, real early 70s music. But I think that's some of the best music that you'll ever hear. It inspires me still to this day. That's where I try to get a lot of my my inspiration from new songs that I write nowadays. Either way, back to the story. I'm growing up, 6th grade, kind of get into hip hop, start, being more 4th grade guys. We wrote a class rap song, and it was, I mean, one of my best friends actually was the actual author of it, but rap was such a, like, it was new, and the town that I was in was not for it, and so I took to it pretty big. It wasn't so much the Vanilla Ice rap that I was into, but more the 2 Live Crew, talking dirty, swear words, deep, hard-hitting bass. Like that was the part that I loved about rap and hip hop at the time. That's kind of what it was. There was a lot of bass CDs. I was a fan. Will Smith was cool. The Nightmare on My Street song. I was a huge Freddy Krueger fan growing up. Scary movies and all that kind of stuff. So when they tied scary movies in with hip hop music, I remember going to my Aunt Tracy and Uncle Jody's wedding and all night long bugging the DJ to play Nightmare on My Street by Will Smith and DJ Jazzy Jeff, and that DJ did not want to play that song, but I stayed there all night long and asked for it, and the last song he did finally play it and let everybody know, because he didn't want to play it for that crowd. That was a Backstreet Island crowd. In the end of the night, the last song, he was like, look, this kid, he's 10 years old, he's been bugging me all night, so I'm going to finish this up and play this song for him. So I loved hip-hop. A lot of people around me didn't. And so that was a big turn on to me. It made me feel like I had my own lane, I guess. So I had friends who were older than I was. Like I said, I was the youngest kid in my class. Growing up, I was rebellious. I was a mouthy kid. It got me into, squabbles, some fights, some brawls, some scraps, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, a lot of these people grew up with me. They know who I grew up around. They know who I was when I was growing up. So it's kind of funny to think about. But yeah, I was a small town kid, really mouthy, and just trying to be rebellious against everything everybody else wanted to be. I tried to be, this is where it kind of gets to the point where I become who I am. I tried to be a sports person. 5th, 6th grade, I was the manager for the basketball team, the junior high basketball team. So from the time I was in 5th grade, I would wake up at 5:30 every morning so I could be at practice from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. just so I could get the towels, be the ball boy, whatever they needed as help and assistant. And I went to all the games, 5th and 6th grade. 7th grade, I didn't get to play. I sat on the bench because I wasn't very good. I mean, I wouldn't have played me either. But 8th grade is when things kind of changed because I did expect to play because I had put in my time. And that particular year, the coach who I had worked with all those years as the manager up to that point no longer was the coach. And the person who took his place was a brand new teacher who was also an ex-highway patrolman, who was also the school guidance counselor, who was also our Quest class teacher, which was a requirement when we were growing up, where we watched fucking Degrassi Junior High stupid bullshit trying to teach us how to be teenagers. He was the basketball coach. He was the drama leader, whatever you want to call him, producer. So the school play, which were all things, and the driver's ed teacher as well, all things that I was a part of. Dave Edgar was his name. This was the only year that he was there at my school. And so the reason I tell you that is because this was the first time I ever felt like I was completely alone, like completely by myself. That teacher kicked me off of the basketball team because I told him that the way he was coaching us was total bullshit. We lost a game that we had like a 40-point lead, and we got beat by, I think, 30 points by the end of the game. I was mad. I mean, I was emotional, and I said it was bullshit, and so he kicked me off of that team. Within the same month, he kicked me out of driver's ed because I was 5 minutes late to a 5:30 a.m. class. He kicked me off of the play. The play was Robin Hood, and so I didn't get to do that. He kicked me out of the class, the Quest class. And nobody questioned any of that. Nobody stuck up for me. And so at that point, I just decided that I was only going to be able to stick up for myself. I didn't really have too many people in my corner. And that didn't feel very good. But music was the one thing that seemed to get me through those things. So I turned to music a lot, and I would say 14, 15, and I got my license at 16 years old. So at that point, I learned to make a lot of bad decisions. And so, I started using a bunch of drugs and doing things that I wouldn't recommend a kid do at 14 or 15 years old. And so I guess it was a lot of learning and a lot of growing through trial and error and making mistakes. And sorry, it gets real for me. So around 16, I started working and getting paychecks and being able to spend money and do things for myself, and we'll put these sunglasses on. So in that sense, my Macho Man glasses, they make me feel tough. So in that sense, I became more rebellious, listened to really loud music, and the most rebellious music that I could. And a lot of that was hip hop. And so hip hop made me feel good. Things that didn't make me feel good were being around family. And then unfortunately, I isolated myself a lot. And I don't recommend that. It's hard on a person. But at the same time, I guess, it helped me grow. And like I said, music is what got me through all of that. I had to go through drug rehab. And I got a second chance after that, really. I got to go back to my school that I'd quit. I went to alternative school, which wasn't good for me. All the time, though, the one thing that I was always into was whatever music program was allowed to me. And so music has been the only consistent theme in my life that's really kept me on at least what I would consider a positive path. Um, as far as me being an artist, that really didn't start until after I graduated high school, because I always had, choirs, or, I'd be in state competitions, or, even, church adventure clubs, whatever. I'd go just to sing if it wasn't for anything else. And, in growing up and becoming an adult, a lot of those, avenues weren't available to me anymore. And so I started going to bars. I got a fake ID, started singing karaoke. And after a while, I just felt like singing other people's music, it didn't do enough for me. I mean, I loved it. I love their music for their music, but it just, I don't know why or where the urge came from, but I needed to write my own music and have my own expressions and be able to tell my own story, I guess, is kind of what I thought. And so I started recording music on a cassette when I didn't really have any other outlet for a lot of the feelings that I had. And I learned through the inpatient drug treatment is really a spot where they kind of tear you down emotionally. So I learned how to at least talk about what I was feeling, and they gave me a lot of coping skills that I was able to sharpen for myself, not necessarily through continuing to go through AA programs or anything like that, but more of just learning to be honest with myself, which I'm going to be real, guys. That's probably the hardest thing that I've ever had to learn to do in my life, is just to be humble with me. Like, I'm trying to be vulnerable as I can be with you guys. I know I'm kind of hiding myself because it's an emotional story for me. It's my real life. But for me to be able to do that in front of you is part of me growing right now. Like, I'm still growing as a human being, and it's been, a long road and a lot of heartache, a lot of rejection, but all those things, excuse me, created who I originally was as an artist, which was what other people called me as a younger kid, Luke Dog. So I know that was a whole bunch of like really serious stuff to get into my hip hop music, but I feel like it needs to be at least addressed, because that is who I am. So I'm trying to use these as reference for my story. Luke Dog, Lukedogg, was my, I don't want to call it God-given, but my friend given, or my, just my alias as a young person, because Snoop Dogg obviously was kind of a cultural god at the time. I listened to a lot of West Coast music, and it was just naturally what people called me. So Luke Dogg was my first artist name, what I went by. Lukedogg. And at first, the first song I ever wrote to was Make 'Em Say by Master P. And I would just use like instrumentals that you could get off of, like singles. I don't think you can even get singles anymore, but I mean, CDs are antiques at this point even, but yeah, singles would have like 3 or 4 different versions in an instrumental. And so I would buy those, and I'd record my own songs on my little Iowa, Iowa boombox, because if I didn't have an instrumental, I could hit the voice cancel button and I could record over my favorite songs anyway. So Luke Dogg used to do that. And like I said, I started recording on cassette tapes, and I made, I think, 13 songs, and it was like a full album. And so I started letting people listen to these songs, and they were like, it's hard to believe this is you. Like, this is really good. And the quality wasn't great, don't get me wrong. And if I were to go back and listen to it today, I don't think anybody would say it's really good. But I was a 19-year-old kid in a small town. And so they were complimenting me, and I ran with it. And it turned me into the man I am today. No, there's a lot in between there. The tape was cool, but I wanted a CD because I had CD players in my car, and I was like, I need to bump this. I need it to be loud, and I couldn't turn the cassette up loud because it was on a tape that had been recorded over. You know, you put the Scotch tape on the top of a cassette tape, and you can dub over whatever's on it. Well, I think I did mine over Bon Jovi or a freaking something to believe in. A Poison tape, cassette tape. So, Luke Dogg's first album was a cassette tape. I took it to a studio, and I asked them if they could take what was on that tape and put it onto a CD for me. And they said they could. It was going to take some time, and it would probably cost me more than I wanted it to, but they could do that. So I had them do that, and that was my very first time in any kind of a studio whatsoever, any type of a recording studio. It was on the east side of Des Moines, called Trifecta Studios. C.W. Smith was the guy that I talked to. And I asked him that day, I was like, do you actually record music here? And he's like, yeah, we're a professional recording studio. And I was like, well, could I come here and record some songs? Like, you know, give me a price tag. What's it cost? And it's $50 an hour. And I'm like, you know, I'm 19 years old. I'm like, yeesh, that's, at that time I can't even hardly pay rent, let alone pay $50 an hour for a, professional recording studio. But my ex-girlfriend's mom at the time won some lawsuit, had a bunch of extra money, and decided to pay for me to go have one recording session, a 10-hour recording session. And so I took 11 songs in there, and I recorded 11 songs that day, as many as I could. And I remember CW being like, I don't think anybody's ever done that many songs in one day. I was a beginner, so I didn't realize how big of a compliment, or even if that was a compliment. Like, I thought maybe it was almost a put down because he was like, maybe downgrading the quality of my stuff or something, like I was quiet about it. I didn't know how to react. Either way, that studio session was the only one that we did for Little Black Cap on a White Boy at that studio. After that, I would play I think I got 2 songs as a demo from him to play for people, and it was on a mini disc. It was real small. And when Originally Jacked, yeah, we'll get to that. So when we recorded those, he only gave me the 2 songs until I paid for everything. So once the check from my ex's mom had cleared, I went and I picked up the songs that I recorded, and CW was kind of upset. He was like, we didn't even get a chance to work with that. We wanted to do all this and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, I met this guy who I feel like might just have more of an idea of what I'm trying to do. His name was Lee Bell. Rest in peace, Lee. One of the best people I've ever met in my whole life. He stuck up for me in some down situations. Lee Bell was an R&B sound tech at the Blues on Grand in Des Moines for 21 years, I believe. And he was a singer, a performer. And so Luke Dogg recorded, I think, maybe 6 songs in his basement studio, which was super pro. Like, he spent his life as a sound tech. Like, he was an absolute engineer. Like, his mind was all about making music sound beautiful, and he did an amazing job at that. So Wolfer Sound was what he ran, and that's where I recorded the other half of Little Black Cap on a White Boy, my Luke Dogg album, the very first like real recording that I ever did. So Luke Dogg was a party animal. Like I said, I did a lot of drugs, and I'm not recommending you do these things, guys. I'm just trying to be honest and tell the truth. And in doing that, in 2002, there was a really big drought and there was no weed around. And in the 2 month time where there was absolutely no weed to be found, I ran across a couple of people who were, driving, who I didn't know. And in Baxter, Iowa, if you didn't know somebody, you found out who they were, pulled them over, talked to them, befriended them. What's up, guys? How you doing? Get to just be acquaintances at least. Shake a hand, high five, fist bump, whatever. Ask them, hey, they're young kids or at least young adults. Say, you guys got any weed? They say, nope. Well, we got some Super G. What the fuck is Super G? I've never heard of that. They said it's GHB. Like, you probably heard it called the date rape drug. I'm like, well, I guess I've heard of that. Yeah, like, you guys take it yourself? Like, what the fuck would you do that for? That doesn't make any sense. Well, I was right. It doesn't make any sense. But invited him to the house. Let's give it a try. Let's get high. Ain't nothing else around. Ain't nothing going on. So let's give this GHB a shot. They give me a cap full. Hang out. They're kicking it. They feel it yet? Feel it yet? No. Give me another cap full. How about now? 15, 20 minutes later. You feel it yet? Nope. Like, man, I don't even think that stuff's any good. I don't feel nothing. We're drinking, whatever, having a good time. These guys go to leave. I walk them out of the house. Other friend fell asleep. Did not participate in the capfuls of GHB. And went outside. They're like, well, just take another swig. And they hand me the bottle. And so I did exactly that. Tipped it back. And they grabbed it real quick. Whoa, 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 whoa. They said, dude, you drank way too much of that, man. I'm like, I ain't feeling it anyway. So I'm just going to go to bed. No big deal. Later, guys. I don't know who those guys were. I've never seen them again in my life. That was the one time that I ever met them. I overdosed on GHB. The next day when I woke up, I couldn't move. And there was sweat beads on every single pore on my body. And I remember trying to stand up, and I couldn't. And I got sick. I was very, very sick. And my friend, who was in the next room, kind of started yelling at me, like, why don't you go to the fucking bathroom, dude? I'm vomiting all over myself at this point, basically. He doesn't know that, though. He just hears that I'm getting sick. And so I listened to him. I tried to get to the bathroom. Well, at my house, we had these old stairs that curved down in an S-curve, and I fell down those stairs and hit two walls going down, and stopped breathing on the way down, or at least sometime anyway, after it hit the ground. And so friend runs downstairs, sees that I'm in some trouble, having a seizure, and calls the ambulance. Ambulance comes, and at this point, these are stories to me, even, because I don't remember. I do remember falling down the stairs. I don't remember a lot after that for about 3 days. But I do know that I was ambulanced to a hospital in Newton, Iowa, where they knew that I was in trouble, so they called Life Flight. I was life flighted from Newton to Des Moines, and for a couple days, or at least 16 hours, was in a coma. They were pretty sure I was going to die, so they called my whole family to come say goodbye, which, I don't know, man, that I wasn't in my right mind, and, the things that I was saying was not very nice. But in that situation, they found out that I had something wrong with my stomach, and I had to have emergency surgery, but they couldn't do the surgery until I was okay in my head, in my mind, and so that took another 3 days. I remember starting to come back to It was 2.5 days later. It was a Monday night, and the reason I remember it was a Monday night was because Monday Night Raw was on. I'm a big wrestling fan, and that was one of the first things that I recall seeing. But the reason I'm telling you this stuff, not only because it's my story, but "Little Black Cap on a White Boy" is the title track on Luke Dogg, the first album. When I was in that coma, my dad said in my ear, "Little black cap on a white boy. Little black cap on a white boy." To me, those words felt like they were this big, and it was like a train slamming into the side of my head. And that was the point where I started to at least wake up and realize I was tied down in a hospital because I was fighting the nurses and the doctors, trying to pull my catheter out, trying to get my friends to help me escape. The stories that I heard that I was putting people through at that point made me realize that I needed to change my life. So, at that point in time, I had the stomach surgery, was in the hospital for another, I think it was 8 days total. Ended up checking out, going back home to Baxter, having to face, everybody knew. I mean, there's no hiding from that when you're from a small town. So what they call face the music. and so Luke Dogg, I continued to be for another year, and I created this album while I was living in Des Moines, Iowa. I moved away from Baxter shortly after that to Des Moines. Still in contact with Lee Bell, and let me tell you, Lee Bell believed in me. He came to the hospital to see me when nobody else would. He was a good dude. This was the second album. It's called Double Diamond Presents. And I made this album because Lee Bell gave me my first microphone and my first mixer. And I had no idea what to do with them, but he believed in me enough to give me that and help me build a computer and gave me software, and he would help me with my mixes because I had no clue how to mix. Sometimes I still don't. But anyway, Lee was a good friend, man, and he gave me my first shot at a lot of things. He, after I got out of the hospital, he let me go with him to a lot of the blues shows because he had live equipment. So we would pack it all into his vans, and we would go to Cedar Rapids, for example, to Checkers Bar, and I would help him unload all this gear and, help him get it. I didn't know how to hook it up, but I'd at least, move it for him. He had a bad hip. So I would move all the gear, and a lot of times at the end of the night when a lot of times singers will run out of material at the end of the night, and they'll say, "Hey, anybody else want to come up and sing?" And I was 19 years old. I had a fake ID. I was in the bars, and I always was the first to raise my hand, and it was always the same scenario. Like, people would look at me like, "Okay, what's this skinny little white kid gonna do?" And then I'd get on the mic, and either the band would back me up, or whatever would happen, and the place would just light up. And then Lee would take the stage, and then he would do his thing, and it was just, it felt good. And the people that we were around were good people. And when we were recording this music together, he brought in real live musicians from like the show Hee Haw. Bob Pace came and played guitar, and I had a guy come and play a real saxophone, which I don't have those skills. Like, so for somebody to appreciate my work enough to have his friends who were very professional musicians come in and play on something that was my very first shot at a real music business. I mean, I don't feel like I was trying to sell records at that point. I just thought it was fun making music. And so my second album that I showed you this year is Double Diamond Presents. I made that one in Des Moines and learned a lot about recording music. That equipment I was using a lot when I went to school for marketing at Des Moines Area Community College, mostly in Ankeny, Iowa. And while I was going there, I recorded this other album, which Kyler Pelding brought up. It's called Originally Jacked, in which I would take like 50 Cent beats or Eminem songs or The Game, I think was some of them. You know, whoever was hot at that time, I would take those beats, real mainstream beats, and make my own songs to them. And I called that Originally Jacked. And some of those songs were an evolution into the newer music, but Originally Jacked was the third album by Luke Dogg. Like, I took my own art, writing music serious enough that I actually wrote 4 albums just for practice. And I knew Luke Dogg was practice. That's always the way that I perceived who Luke Dogg was as a musician. And the reason I was telling you about the overdose is because after I woke up from that horrible, life-changing incident, my mind told me that I needed to move away from Luke Dogg because Luke Dogg lost his life. He lost his chance. He lost his shot. And Izzy Dunfore was the question. Is he done for? Like, Luke Dogg was this close away, this close from not having life. Like, my heartbeat was 40 BPM, like next to nothing. So, little black cap on a white boy, bam, wakes me up. From that point forward, I feel, okay, for some reason, I'm giving this shot, I'm giving this chance. Like, let's not screw it up as bad as Luke Dogg just screwed it up. I hope nobody ever has to wake up in the hospital and have their family tell them what they had just been through for the past 7 days. That was the worst experience of my life, no doubt about it, and it changed my life. And then I started making music again, writing songs. And I started writing Is Izzy Dunfore 2 years before I actually switched my public persona, I guess, to the name Izzy Dunfore. The idea, I should talk about that before I get too far into the artist Izzy Dunfore. Like I said, I'm a big wrestling fan. So I had a Nintendo 64. I used to play a lot of video games also. And Nintendo 64 had some really, really good wrestling games by THQ. And one of them was WrestleMania 2000, and one of them was No Mercy. Those two games together actually created the mindset of who is Izzy Dunfore. I created a custom character in my mind, and granted, this really, this person never existed, but I had an idea of what he would say in interviews, and the only thing that he would say was, the question is he done for? The answer is never. So in that, I incorporated that into my writing and in my music. And so over the course of 2 years and writing 2 more albums as Luke Dogg, the Double Diamond Presents and the Originally Jacked album, I slowly switched the wheels into Izzy Dunfore. So the first, it's hard to see, I'm trying to keep the glare off it, but the first Izzy Dunfore album, I don't even know which way to turn it. This is funny. I'm playing a game. Okay. Izzy Dunfore, Only I. That was the first album. It don't matter. This logo, so D-Mac, my friend Dallas Moore, who I haven't talked to in at least a decade, wanted to be my manager. And at that time, I wasn't taking it too seriously, to tell you the truth. I just had that, horrible overdose experience. Went to school, was trying to turn my life around for the better, quit drinking, quit quit doing everything except smoking weed, and focused on marketing and music. And so I wrote the album Only I, and recorded with a guy in Ames, Iowa. His name is Eric Henderson. He had Bumblefunk Music. I met him through Dallas Moore. I shouldn't get too specific about names. I'm sorry. Dallas, I apologize. So yeah, we were both marketing students at DMAC. He lived in Ames. I also lived in Ames. So we hung out. We started recording in his basement with the equipment that Lee Bell had given me, and we recorded a lot of the songs for Only I in his basement on a $35 program that he and I went to Best Buy together and bought because I had downloaded a bunch of bullshit on LimeWire, probably a bunch of bad porn, and caught viruses and ruined my computer and had to get rid of it. So lost all that ability to be able to record and have a recording studio. So he had bought the software. I would bring my equipment, and we recorded Only I. And so the gun logo was kind of his idea. Like Tech Nine was just becoming a nationwide artist. He was always a pretty big underground guy, but nationally he was just becoming more well known. And he kind of tried to compare me to Tech Nine, and our conversation was like, when you're rapping, when you're flowing, it's like a gun. It just don't stop. It just keeps going. So his girlfriend was, I believe, a fashion design major, maybe, and I think that they got married. I'm pretty sure that that's his wife now. But she actually designed that first microphone gun logo as we were recording the Izzy Dunfore album, Only I. And there's, I think, 2 references to Luke Dogg even on the Only I album. So it was still very much a brand new idea and concept and idea that, I wasn't just being me anymore. I was actually becoming a new character, and I think that's an interesting mindset. And as I think about, 22 was when I had the overdose issue. So from then to 25 was just writing as this new character that I'm the only one who really knows about. Everybody else knows, not everybody, but I guess the people who are around me, which isn't a lot of people being from a small town, know Luke Dogg, okay? So in my world, my people know Luke Dogg, and that seems like a lot. It might not be, but that's the funny thing about being from the middle of nowhere. Maybe that's why I have an ego problem. And I do have a slight ego problem. I try to keep it in check. Sometimes I don't. But anyway, Only I was recorded a lot in Dallas's basement and in Eric's. At the time, it was in the basement of a bank in Ames, Iowa. But I was becoming pretty good friends with Eric and helped him build a studio at his house, which is Bumblefunk Music. So after we built the studio, and it was a very, very nice studio, like an actual floating room, control room, live room, vocal booth. He spent a lot of good money making it a very quality space. He hired me to work at his, it was a company called Bioforce at the time. They made nano arrayers, which is interesting little side note, a little printer that can print molecules smaller than you can see. Either way, because of that, this guy who was engineering my music, he was also a PhD in biology, and so he gave me a job, marketing, which was what I was going to school for. But all we ever talked about was music all day long and how we could make great music together and try to market it. He was originally from California, so we had a really good just energy when it came to wanting to do these entertaining things. So we recorded a lot of music together, and I kind of thought that he and I would work together for a really long time. But he got married, had a kid, and so those things became more of a priority than having me or anybody in his recording studio. And I got to record quite a few songs. I mean, whenever I was given access to a studio, I took advantage of it. And so I think I recorded somewhere between 30 and 40 songs while I was given about 30 or 40 days free reign on his studio and all his really nice gear. And almost all of that music can be heard on my SoundCloud. Like that is mostly the unreleased album that I don't know how many songs I put on there, guys, but there's a bunch of them. And I didn't put all of them on there, but there was so much music that I was writing at that time. I would say I wrote the bulk of the music that I have released between 2005 and 2009. And I had so much just sitting around that, at the time I was working with Combine from Cedar Rapids. We had a group called Simply Complicated. So I was writing for that. I was writing as a solo artist. I would be writing for, collaborations with people that we were meeting all over the place when we were doing shows. And so Luke Dogg quickly became a thing of the past, which was exactly what I wanted. Izzy Dunfore met a lot of people through MySpace. MySpace was probably my favorite time as far as being a musician, an entertainer, being an artist, being able to network, because it did so many good things for me. Like, that's how I met Combine in the first place. We together had a group called Simply Complicated, and granted, we only did these things together for almost 2 full years, not quite, but we recorded 3 full albums together in that time. So, I mean, anytime that it was nose to the grindstone, you need to be writing music right now, I was the first to be done, and I was always pushing everybody like, you need to get this done, you need to get this done, we need to work so we can get out here and tour and get in front of people and, do all the things that you're supposed to do as an artist. Well, we were doing that, but we didn't really have anybody backing us. We were just doing it by ourselves. And so being the networking person that I am, I guess, I studied marketing, so it's always on my mind, like, what can I do next? What can I do next? Who can I talk to? Who can help lead the way to the next thing that I need to do? And so I took the 3 albums that we had recorded as White Trash Records, Simply Complicated, which the album we did was called Front Page News. Combine, if you search Combine, I think you could find it, because he wanted to take all the credit for that once I left the group, or was kicked out of the group. If you ask, just depends on who you ask what story you get. Either way, Simply Complicated kicked all forms of ass. I ain't even gonna lie. We were bad fucking ass. It was a good time. We took over venues. We would command attention, and it was a lot of fun. White Trash Records was pretty successful for what little bit of business we did. But Only I was always an issue, because I put out this solo album right before Front Page News came out, and Combine was always kind of salty about that. Like, he wanted me to not do that in the first place. And I had already got the copies made, and I was like, dude, I put some money and time into this. Like, you don't get to make that decision. So we made Front Page News. We did another little album or project. It was called the Dunfore Project. This had a lot of White Trash Records music on it. Bonus was running around with us at the time. He was our homie, our little sidekick. So when we would do shows, it would be, Bonus would start out, and then he and I had a collab. So at the end of Bonus's set, I would come out and do that song. It was called Passenger Seat, which is still one of my favorite tracks from that time. And then after that song, Combine would come on, and we would do 2 songs that we all 3 had together. And then from that point, Bonus would leave the stage, and Combine and I would have the next 45 minutes to an hour or whatever time we had to perform. So I took those 3 albums that I had, Only I, Front Page News, the Dunfore Project, to trying to think of what the club was called at the time, Razzmatazz in Des Moines, Iowa. So prior to switching to Izzy Dunfore, I guess I kind of left out the part where I used to go to the battles in Des Moines. After I moved out of Baxter, after the emergency situation that I put myself in, and moved to Des Moines, I moved in with my cousin. She was a stripper. She was friends with my homie DZ. DZ was one of the promoters for these battles that were going on at KP's in Des Moines. This was on 6th and College. and it was mostly a gangster bar. I mean, it was not the typical bar where 20 young something white person went. Period. So I would go to these battles at KP's every week, Thursday nights, and basically battle all of the hood rappers from the hoods in Des Moines, Oak Ridge, wherever, you know, they might have been living at the time, mostly Oak Ridge. But, you know, Murder, Ace B, they were two of the major ones that I was always usually put up against. Spida was one of the female artists there. You know, once in a while we'd have one of the more known artists come in, but not regularly. Like, it was a one-off. I was there all the time. DJ Hollywood was the DJ, and one particular time, DJ Starscream happened to be the guest DJ for the battles that night, and that was probably the strongest night that I ever had at the battles, because I didn't get a win very often. I came in second quite a bit. Everybody appreciated what I did on the mic. They didn't want to vote for me because they wanted to vote for their homie. I get it. I always understood that. Whatever. What am I supposed to say? That wasn't my spot. You know, like, I was brought in as a challenger. They said, okay, white boy, let's see what you got. And I showed them, and I had fun, and so did they. And that was really what it was all about. It was a very unique bar. We smoked weed. There were a couple nights where there were fights and problems. I mean, I'm not going to say there was never an issue, but it was, for the most part, a good vibe. Like, it was, for an unsafe environment, which everybody would agree it was a good time. So I was 23, 24. That's 03, 04. So at that time, I'm writing Is Izzy Dunfore, but I'm introducing myself and being introduced as Luke Dogg in the battles. So that was kind of a big point and part of turning into Izzy Dunfore from Luke Dogg, just because the things that I was going through in my life at that time were very difficult. And I knew that I was being tested. And the question of, is he done for, made perfect sense. It did. It didn't. There was no doubt in my mind that I was this character. I don't stop. I don't quit. I don't give up. I'm mouthy. I will push the limits. And to me, that says, is he done for? When are you going to stop? When are you going to realize you've gone too far? I don't. Okay, so is he done for? Never. So I take these 3 CDs to DJ Starscream, who at the time was filming a documentary about Des Moines hip hop. And when I walked up to him, I was like, you want to film these guys? Cool, man, but like, I'm trying to do something bigger, better. I think you might be a key to that. Take these albums and check them out, see what you think. I said, I got a show coming up in Cedar Rapids. It'd be an honor to have you come out and open up for the show. It's, you know, supposed to be one of the better venues in town. If you got time, I know you just won a Grammy. Congratulations. Like, you know, definitely kissing ass, man. I ain't gonna lie. DJ Starscream is Slipknot's DJ, and I can remember when they first started becoming a recognized band. You know, friends who I had, female friends, were dating some of the band members, and I was at a festival getting down, yeah, Slipknot, go up and say, hey, what's up, how you doing? You know, she's like, I'm trying to watch my boyfriend's band play. And at that point, like, it kind of knocked me on my ass for a second, ego-wise. Like I said, my ego's horrible. And it just, like, smacked me in the face, like, damn, man, like, that stage is powerful. Like, we're friends anytime, but not right now. That's what she was telling me. So, it's little moments like that. Either way, back to the point of who is Izzy Dunfore, because that's what I'm getting at, guys. Izzy Dunfore is a creation of somebody who's been through a lot of shit. So at that point, Izzy Dunfore becomes an actual public character. And since then, I've had a lot of people, curious about how I got started. Well, I got in a lot of trouble and I did a lot of things wrong and I tried to learn from all of them. And for some reason, I'm able to translate some of my experiences and a lot of my feelings based on those experiences into other things that hopefully you or other people can relate to and understand and maybe feel something similar to and relate to. Being an artist is something that saved my life. That's the truth. As far as I'm not going to continue on too far with the music, as far as like the albums, this album, this album, this album. But each album has added to the character of Izzy Dunfore as far as who I am even in real life, because I've spent so much time being this character that it became who I introduced myself as. It became a bigger part of my life than who I even am as a human being. Like I sometimes don't even answer to my real name around people who know me well enough to call me by my real name. Most of the people I've met in the last 20 years, I've introduced myself as Izzy, and that's how they know me. They might not know my real name, and they might not know where I'm originally from, or the way I grew up, or it's those situations that I'm sort of blessed with, and have been able to reinvent myself as a human, but also to portray this character who has been through these real life situations and written songs about it. As far as being a writer and writing music and the words and the lyrics, for me that started in 4th grade, and that was like the first time that I was really, I guess, ever rewarded for being talented. That might be the best way to describe it, because so 4th grade, and remember I'm the youngest kid in my class, so I think I was 10. It was 1990. I remember Batman coming out. I always think of the original Batman with Michael Keaton in 1990. That I don't know why that's such a landmark, but so 4th grade, I'm writing stories. We had a contest in our class for the Young Writers Workshop. 2 winners are selected. They get to go to the college campus for the day and go through all these seminars and basically a day of college. And I remember my best friend at the time wrote like 7 stories, and it was my best friend at the time did not get picked, and that's probably the reason that he wasn't my best friend after that. I did get picked, and so that was the first time that I was ever rewarded or said, told you did a good job. And so the weird thing about being an artist is there's a really big balance in the rewards and the consequences to everything that you have to accept, or everything that you get as an accolade. Some people are going to be happy for you, and then there's the other hand where some people aren't. And that's the hard part about being an artist. And as far as being an artist, I just hope that I don't ever make anybody feel like they couldn't talk to me like a human being, because I feel like that might be, aside from my live performances, one of my biggest strengths is just being able to relate to human beings. I feel like we're not all that different. We're a lot more alike than we are different. and I would rather relate to you and figure out how we are the same than try to make myself distance from you by trying to be something that I'm probably not. So I'm Izzy Dunfore, guys. My real name's Lucas Hewitt. I apologize for being a little emotional, but this is my real life. Like I said, my ego tells me that everybody knows these things about me. After I started a show called The Unmasked Underground in the morning, I've learned that everybody doesn't know all these things about me, and through their questions, I've decided that I can do something a little bit different just to show me in a different light and not necessarily be focused on the music, because a lot of these platforms censor my music after the live stream because they don't believe that I'm the owner of the music, which is fine. As long as you're there live and get to see it, that's when it really counts. But I'm not going to continue to do this tonight too much longer. I might light this back up and puff on it a couple times with you. But yeah, guys, I'm a real person, and I'll never, ever pretend that I'm not. I've done a lot of stupid shit. I can say that with total confidence. And the decisions that I do make for myself today, I try to make based on better and forward thinking and trying not to make those same mistakes again. I'm not perfect. I never want to be perfect. But I want to have fun. I want to enjoy life. And right now my life is a lot different than I expected it to be. I took a year off of touring before this virus hit. And when I was expecting to come back, everything kind of got canceled and put on hiatus. So I feel like this is a time where I'm being tested once again. But when aren't we being tested? I just think that I need to keep reflecting on who I am, and the question that's still the same. As long as I'm around, I don't think it's going to change. The question is he done for? The answer? It's never. I appreciate you guys spending some time with me. We'll do this again. I'll try to do it regularly. If I do, I'll let you know if it's going to be at this time or another time. But we need to do more of this. We need to hang out. Maybe we can Zoom together sometime so you can do some talking and I don't have to do all of it. But guys, I really appreciate all of your attention and any love that you guys have given me over the years, any support, any presence, any energy, any inspiration. If you don't think that just being a part of my shows, being a part of my little morning podcast, being a part of my past, if you don't think that that doesn't have something to do with who Izzy Dunfore is, you're crazy. You all are a part of Izzy Dunfore. We're all done for. Good night, guys. Hope you have a good one.